Hello, community. It's Dr. T, and I just wanted to check in with you on this Tuesday night and share with you how failing at therapy changed my life. So I started thinking about this week because I was at a incredible conference this weekend called Wisdom 2.0, and it's all about people up leveling their life and being more conscious and just really an incredible experience overall. But one of the things that I noticed was just how many people were sharing about having done so much work on themselves, done so much therapy, and feeling like they just end up in the same place. And as I was observing a lot of this, and the more I observed these conversations, the more I sort of tuned in to just how many people have that experience, right? So all of these people are obviously there at this conference because they want to be able to be, more empowered and more peaceful and more productive. But person after person was just talking about, just so many things that they've never worked. And I've tried therapy, but it just doesn't seem to work for me. And I had this moment where I just thought about the reality about how therapy didn't really work for me. And also how that was the one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. So the truth is that that's the case for a lot of people, right? And there's all these amazing practitioners. A lot of you are in this community that are serving and helping heal people and facilitating things. But the truth is that the process is set up for only a certain level of success, right? The process is trying to accomplish in like an hour a week something that is, extremely challenging. It's so much more extensive what's going on with any human being on an emotional level, like 24 hours a day. And for whatever reason, we've got this model that's like, you're going to go in for an hour, right? You're going to spend the first 10, 15 minutes talking about like what happened this week, what you had for lunch, what you're settling in, getting adjusted to the moment, to the person, you're connecting. And then you're, in a lot of ways, in a lot of processes, sort of reprocessing a lot of the same things, right? And somebody's listening to you. And empathy is a very important thing. You're getting the empathy. And I remember all of that myself, right? There's nice people. I'm getting to express my stuff, so it feels a little bit better. I'm getting some empathy. Somebody's listening to me. And before you know it, right, it's time to go, and you're wrapping up, and like you got like a tidbit. And in so many ways, that's beneficial. And for some people, they get lots of breakthroughs, and the process can be very productive. And I'm not saying that it's not. I'm talking about for those of you who were like me, and a lot of the people that I have experienced and helped over the years, and then just, so many people that I just encountered over the weekend, where that's not necessarily getting them the outcomes that they want, right? So there are lots of people who really have very intense emotional dynamics. There are lots of people who have very intense emotional background, right? Very, very, very intense. I'm one of them. And again, if we're just thinking about things on a practical level, we're talking about 1 hour a week, and that's gonna try over the course of I don't know how many years, right? To add up, maybe 20 weeks later, you've done 20 hours. Like comparing that to a lifetime and a whole developmental process where you grew up experiencing certain emotional dynamics and behavioral dynamics, and then you are trying to recover from that. You're trying to live your everyday life. And, again, if you went for a year straight, you'd have 52 hours trying to then have that address what has been going on 24 hours a day for however many years. And depending on how intense things were, what the nature is of things that are going on in your life, that it's like, let me take a little toothpick and try to hold up, I don't know, a big platter or something. I've got a toothpick, and that's the base process that we have. And so what happens is people have a lot of emotional sensitivity. They have a lot of trauma. They've absorbed a lot from their family of origin. They've absorbed a lot from multiple generations of momentum, of patterns of anxiety and depression and addiction and volatility and, just all kinds of emotional dynamics and behavioral dynamics. And there are people that have such extreme experience in their background. They have, significant abuse and neglect and pressure and tension. And then, there's the laws of physics. It's like, okay, I've got this hour, and if I total that all up, that's somehow gonna make a difference. And it can, but when we're just talking about, again, I'm a very, very practical person, so I'll just say that. Very, very practical. And when I looked at the situation for myself after failing therapy and struggling for years, the reality is that we're talking about leverage. So, you need leverage in order to change things. And if you're going to therapy an hour a week, and then you're operating the other 6 days a week, and you're pretty much in a similar emotional set of emotional dynamics and behavioral dynamics that you've been in, except for this 1 hour a week, then you're trying to have that also counter how you're experiencing life all of the other hours per week. And so there's just, in many cases, for a lot of people, depending on the person, the situation, what they're trying to accomplish, what they're coming in with, right? There's a lot to it. What are you coming in with? What are all the factors? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your outcomes? For some people, they have really big outcomes they want to accomplish, and there's not enough leverage to make that happen, right? Because again, if you're struggling in your relationship, or you're parenting and you're under stress, and you still got all of this trauma from your upbringing, and then you're experiencing everyday trauma, and life is happening, then the leverage for some people just is not enough, right? So that's a challenge. But then what happens is people feel like there's something wrong with them, right? And maybe even they think there's something wrong with the therapist. And the truth is, sometimes that might be a part of the issue, is that the therapist process isn't a fit for you. But a lot of time it's the fact that the process of just 1 hour per week isn't significant even for the greatest therapeutic professionals that exist. And being somebody who did the traditional process for a period of my career and had lots of great, amazing results, the reality is I made some changes in how I do stuff so that people could get transformed much more quickly. Because no matter how beneficial it was, in my case, I had people saying, I can't wait to come in next week. I can't wait. Like, I'm counting the days. And then they'd come in and they'd say, I just could not wait all week to be here to learn more and to train more. And because in my process, it's got a lot to do with with emotional training and emotional empowerment. So even with the success of that, I also recognize, like, great, we're getting phenomenal results, but what if people could have them faster, right? So these are some of the motivations that I realized my clients had, because as a client, I also felt the same way. So sometimes, it's not just as simple as therapy doesn't work for you, or there's something wrong with you. Therapy can't work for you. You can't change, right? There's so many things that we can all feel. And I felt that in my life. When I was very young, I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. I had an eating disorder from a very young age that was just all consuming. I was so highly emotionally sensitive, and I was in a very intense environment with a lot of emotional sensitivity in my family, and this was incredibly difficult. It was incredibly difficult, and going into therapy and trying different therapists, and realizing, I'm going to therapy, but I'm basically still in this anxiety. I'm still in this eating disorder struggle, and feeling like, again, there's something wrong with me, and feeling like, oh my gosh, this is just going to continue forever. Like, this is consuming my life. And the feeling that was the worst of all was the feeling that, even though I could tell this is a good person, good therapist, I could see, parts of the process that were productive, what I felt was, whatever you're doing, I really appreciate it, but I am in a lot of pain and struggle right now, and my life is passing me by right now. So every day that we don't have this fixed is a day that I'm suffering, struggling. I'm not making the contribution that I want to make in this world on the level that I want to make it. I'm sabotaging things in my life. I'm missing out on connection. I was really hurting my body. I mean, I was like destroying my body with the stuff I was doing with the eating disorder. And, no matter how nice and helpful and empathetic the therapeutic, these clinicians were, I was just completely and totally suffering and struggling. And it just wasn't enough, right? And so I believe, and I just know, I've talked to literally thousands of people at this point, and it just prompted me more, like I said, over this weekend, to realize how many people are, even when they're getting some benefit, how many people are suffering so intensely, even when they're going to therapy. And then the other side of that is where just, whoever you might be matching up with and whatever the process they do, that just may not be effective enough for what it is that you specifically need. And so these are all of these inherent challenges, right, that go on with the current traditional model that we have. And as I was essentially failing, but even though I was going through this therapeutic process, and feeling like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, am I ever going to get out of this, or am I just going to spend my life in this struggle? Because if I am, I'm not quite sure I want to hang out, right? And I would have those kinds of thoughts, and so many of my clients have as well, which is just like, wow, if nobody knows how to fix this, and these are the people that are supposed to fix it, and this is what's going on, then what does that mean for my life, right? So why failing at therapy really changed my life is because this is, so long ago. I recognized I was in my young 20s, And I just recognize this isn't quite a process that's working. I knew people in my life, I knew people in my family, I knew people that were getting help and still struggling. I knew so many people that had like so much addiction in their family and so much struggle. There were people in my family that had been going to therapy for years, or people in my family that literally like went into institutions, and still, you know, these emotional struggles persisted. The anxiety, the depression, the self-medicating, the just being out of control with emotions, being exhausted. I mean, this is the other part of this whole nightmare, is that all of this is so exhausting. It's so emotionally exhausting. It's so debilitating. It lowers your self-worth. It lowers your ability to create the kind of life that would really be the best for you. There's so much impact to this that it's you know, it's really something to pay attention to. So when I was looking at all this, I just thought to myself, well, I don't know, I never at that point in my life thought I am such a smart person. Like, I didn't think of myself that way. Like, I'm so smart, I am going to be the one to fix this. But what I did think was, well, if I'm looking around and nobody can like figure this out, then it seems like I better try to figure it out, if not just for my own self. And as somebody that is fortunately in many ways been blessed with the ability to look at things on just a practical level, I was able to just look at, again, the practicality, like the physics of the situation, and say to myself, okay, it's an hour a week. Mostly, you know, we're getting there. We connect a little bit, chit chat, get, you know, warmed up, talk about how unhappy I am, how much I'm struggling. And then I kept noticing, like, well, wow, that's really interesting, because all the time I keep basically talking about how awful things are. And that's also a part of the process, which I'm not quite sure how that's going to lead me to the outcomes I want. So I just looked at everything from a practical standpoint and knew that there needed to be a process that made it so that if I wanted to be somebody who could manage my emotions, who could completely control my behavior, and could have myself do the things that I wanted to be able to do, not do the things that I didn't want to be doing, and feel the way I wanted to feel, and be able to operate and function at the level that I wanted to, then the truth is, what I was really trying to accomplish was not just like, oh, okay, whatever happened in my childhood, this and that. The truth is, I was actually trying to accomplish something very specific, was to be feeling and operating the way that I wanted to. So I started to look at it from that direction. And again, this is how failing out of therapy changed my life, because I was able to actually develop a process that I used on myself, and have used on literally hundreds of people. I've helped hundreds of people with. And that would have never happened if therapy really wasn't working for me, you know, or if therapy was working for me, actually. So what I thought, okay, so we're talking about developing my capacity on an emotional level, right? To not be impacted all the time, to not be reacting, to not feeling overwhelmed, to not feeling anxious, to not being in a constant state of reactivity. We're talking about being emotionally stable, emotionally solid. We're talking about the foundation of how you experience everyday life. So I thought, right, this is really important. I want to be able to experience life in a stable emotional state. So if I'm in a stable emotional state, then I've got the options to select my behaviors and select my choices. Hey, Jess, hello. Hi, babe. So in understanding what the goals were for myself, and I think these are the goals for a lot of people, it's my sense of things, being able to be in a consistent emotional state and not have all kinds of things all the time that were happening around me, just have me just feel so affected, right? This was like a roller coaster. So I wanted to be the one driving. And so that was clear, right? I want to be the driver of my whole emotional system. I want to be the driver of my experience. I want to be in charge of that. I don't want Ben and Jerry's ice cream to be ruling my life. I would like to be in charge of it, and I would like to be the one making the choices, and let Ben and Jerry stick to making the ice cream, right? These are just some of the outcomes that I wanted. And I wanted to be able to be so connected to myself that even if people in my life weren't connecting with me, as a lot of people struggle with because they have their own emotional difficulties connecting with themselves, I wanted to be able to, like, if they weren't able to connect with me, like some people in my family couldn't, I wanted to be able to connect with myself. So I had me, no matter what was going on around me. I wanted to be able to have myself available to me. So that was another goal. I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because at the time, I didn't have myself. I didn't have myself. I was like getting knocked around in life, and without my own ability to be there for myself, to connect with myself, soothe myself, and navigate myself through that moment to whatever it is I wanted to create next in my life. So these are some of these outcomes that, because of failing therapy, I started to realize, like, what am I doing? Am I here just to understand the problems? Because I'm pretty sure I have a pretty firm grip on them. Although it's very beneficial, a lot of great self-awareness. Am I here to understand it, or am I here to exist in a certain way? Right. So this is how therapy not working for me made a huge difference, because I set out to first I recognized what I was really wanting versus what I wasn't wanting anymore. I was very clear about that. And knowing what I wanted to create as an outcome, as a set of outcomes, allowed me to then engineer and design a methodology that would allow that to happen, right? So I wanted this, then what are the things that I needed to understand and learn how to do to be able to create this experience? So having something, it's like anything, right? The necessity is the mother of invention, right? Having something not necessarily work in particular for me, and like it has not worked in all the ways that people want it to, right? That allowed me to become an engineer of creating the outcomes. And then that helped me develop really very impactful, influential, effective, and practical methodologies that I, first of all, used on myself and freed myself from all of this difficulty, and created what I wanted for myself. And then recognize, oh my gosh, this is so great because this is so practical. It's very tactical, it's strategic, and it works, right? So I went about doing that, and then this made it very obvious to me to recognize, like, wow, this is my purpose. This is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm meant to be helping people with this. So that whole process of having something not work that was supposed to work, but also if we just kind of look at it, it's kind of challenging to see how it could really produce all the outcomes people want. It was a complete game changer. And I've gotten to, fortunately spend the rest of my life getting to keep doing this methodology for my own self, and then doing this for so many people, hundreds of people over the years, and having them be able to create those outcomes for themselves as well. All of those specific ways that they wanted to feel, things they wanted to do, things that, ways that they wanted to be. And not only did that happen, but I also, ended up writing a book about it, right? My book is coming out on March 12th, right? This is this methodology. My book's called The Method, The Practical Path to Living Your Life's Purpose and Potential. And, you know, I never had plans to write a book in my life, but because this methodology has been so effective, that then brought me to, you know, another point in my life to write a book that would speak to other people and give them a practical process and methodology that could change their life the way that, you know, so many different books have helped me in my life. So why I wanted to share this with all of you is that, for many different reasons, obviously, but I wanted to share with you that if therapy has not helped you, or it's only helped you to whatever extent, it's helped you to whatever extent it has, or if you are in that camp where you just feel like it's not working for me. Hi, Brandy. Hi. It's one of my chosen families are on here. If that process, let's just say, hasn't brought you all the outcomes that you want, nor do you feel like it's equipped you, most importantly, to create those outcomes, to be able to know that at least you have the power to create them, then you're not alone, right? And this is how it is for so many people. Brandy, it's so cute. It's on March 12th. I'm so excited. When we launch it, it's going to be 99 cents. So I want everybody to be able to it's a no-brainer. I want everybody to be able to have it. And so March 12th, you'll all get the link to be able to get it for 99 cents, which is great. So, you know, in fact, you know, just with Jess, with you on there, it's just reminding me, you know, Jessica, you said to me, you know, it's the feeling that's different is that you were able to learn how to do this for yourself. So even though every day, right, it doesn't mean that every day of our lives are some perfect straight line process, but there's a very big difference between therapy and then an emotional training process that allows you to feel like whatever you're going through, you have a methodology, you have an ability and a capacity to navigate yourself through it, to connect with yourself, to soothe yourself, and to direct yourself from the driver's seat versus the passenger seat. And that's what I wanted also for all of you, because when I was in that position too, where I'm like, I am so dependent on a process that isn't really working for me, that was also one of the worst parts about it, is I felt like I was going to be dependent on a process. And so much of what I've created in my emotional training programs and in the book, where you get to learn a lot about all of this, you're getting tons of this methodology available to you. All of that, again, was created for people to be able to get the emotional training, the emotional strength, right, to really be able to develop that, to have a strong relationship with themselves, strong connection with themselves, and to be able to be really intentional with their life and create the outcomes they want. Right, so that's why the process of emotional training that I'm always talking about is something that can create different outcomes than what some therapeutic processes can create. And so that's why I like to share this with you, to give you a sense of awareness that if something has not worked for you, just recognize, and first of all, do not give up. Do not give up, and do not take it personally, by the way, right? Because I'll tell you, if I gave up, then that would have been not good for a lot of people. And I'm so glad that I didn't give up at so many times that I felt like I don't know if I can do this thing called life. So do not give up, because there is a process that can work for you, right? And if you haven't done emotional training yet, if you haven't done a process that is truly training your emotional system, then what follows is your behavioral process and puts you in the driver's seat, then you really haven't lived yet. Right? So, consider the process of emotionally training yourself in as an opportunity, as an option for you to consider before you feel like, therapeutic stuff just can't work for you. And also, if you're feeling like, hey, I've just got so much stuff, it's been so bad, I've been through so much, there's trauma, there's abuse, there's so much stuff, people can feel like there's so much that nothing can help them. And the reality is that emotional training can make the difference in that. And it does not matter how much stuff happened before. Right? It does not matter. I myself have been through a lot in my life. It was very extreme. And I've worked with a lot of people that have been through very, very extreme things. And emotional training does make the difference. It has been the difference in so many people's lives. So, failing at therapy dramatically changed my life, and it brought me to create something really beneficial that I really love, and every day I love to just create more and more of it. And what I also want to say about that is, if you feel like therapy has not worked for you, also know that even if it may not be your purpose to create what I created, but you have an important contribution to make. You have an important set of talents and gifts to give to the world. And when you got your emotional development and your emotional foundation strong, then it allows you to be in that ability to be creating things that you want, instead of just trying to survive what you're experiencing emotionally, which as that was happening for me, that was just not fun. That was not what I would call life whatsoever. All right, everyone. So I wanted to share a little bit of this with you, a lot actually tonight, and just let you know that that emotional training is available for you. The method book will be available for you soon, and I'm here if you'd like to jump in and see what this is all about. All right, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you later in the week. Bye.